You deliver incredible value, they will pay. So you have to focus towards delivering value. So obviously the value has to be to an extent that the user is perceiving it to be great value, not you perceiving great value. The probability of you getting money from a share of money that he is earning is more easier than you are asking him to spend some money from his disposable income.
Hello and welcome to the Startup Operator Podcast. I'm Roshan Cariappa. Jani, Pasha and his team have taken on a very ambitious goal at Lokal. They plan to be the internet for Bharat. That's right. They offer everything from jobs to matrimony to business listings on Lokal, and they have over 6 million active users at this point of time. And they plan to scale to all other districts across India over the next couple of years. In this conversation, Jani and I spoke about how his team productized their vision, taking the product to the market, solving for the Bharat user, and scaling their team and culture. This was a fun conversation, a lot of insights in here that you can learn from. So let's get into this podcast with Jani Pasha. Hey, Jani, welcome to the Startup Operator Podcast. Thank you so much for making the time.
Yeah, thanks for having me here, Roshan. Glad to be here.
Yeah, really looking forward to this conversation. Jani, so I want to begin with the root of the problem that you're solving with Lokal, which is the lack of information access for non-English users. What is that special insight that you uncovered which prompted you to start Lokal, and how has that, understanding changed over time?
So yeah, I think before I go into that problem, right, I'll introduce myself in my own words as well, so that people can get context how we are solving this. So I come from a small town called Kodad in Telangana. It's a town of population of roughly 50-60,000 people. And until I graduated from IIT Kharagpur in 2013, most of my life I lived in this small town. Post graduation from IIT Kharagpur, I over the last 8 years have been working in startups, led product teams, and co-founded a startup before. So my co-founder Vipul and I, we started Lokal in 2018. We started trying to solve the simple problem. Essentially, there are around 1.4 lakh registered local newspapers or newspapers in India. And local newspapers, by virtue of being the largest distribution platform in this tier 2 plus locations in India, anything and everything happening in that location happens on local newspapers, either be it in local updates, local news, jobs, matrimonials, real estate, businesses promoting about themselves. And local newspapers are also inherently social in nature. You get to know about people. So you get to know about updates about people that you know, businesses that you know, and birthdays and obituaries all happen there. So Lokal started as a hyperlocal social media platform, trying to solve the purpose of local newspapers and digitalizing all the other experiences that exist on local newspapers for new to internet, native language Indian audience. So Lokal is a vernacular platform. That is how we started. And over the last 3.5 years, we have made tremendous progress to actually grow to currently roughly around 6 million monthly active users and operational in 189 districts in 6 languages and 7 states. And then we evolved, right? Fundamentally, when we started building this platform, right, we understood a lot about the user that we are building for, right? This user that I'm talking. So I come from Kodar. It's in a district called Suryapet. So I'm talking about people from districts like Suryapet. Suryapet has a population of roughly 1.1 million people. So in Suryapet, right, like this user that I'm talking about living in that location generationally have been 80% of these people that I'm talking about have not traveled further than their adjacent district. Most of them either traveling to a far off city is a once in a 6 month or a once in a yearly use case for most of these users. And these people are living generationally in this location, right, with their parents, grandparents, and their businesses, their livelihood from that location. So most of the needs of this user are from that location, whether it is daily needs, daily updates, jobs. The preference is कि मेरे town. I will do it in my, it's in the town, then district, and then
my life is in my town, basically.
Yes, sort of. Then your matrimony also. And then most of the use cases, unlike an urban audience, right? Urban audience, we are truly global audience, right? We like global citizens as such. We really care about, to an extent, care about what is happening within Ukraine and Russia, and we are flexible. Most of the Bangalore people today are thinking of working for global companies as such. Jobs are global. Maybe a few of my friends are also married to non-Indians, right? So the use case. So this new to internet users, especially coming from places like Suryapet, right? They have needs, especially from that location. They got access to internet in 2016 with Jio coming in. Thanks to Jio, a lot of people have access to internet and smartphone penetration increase. But it's been 5-6 years, right, since Jio got in. It's from 2016, right? Even after 5 years, these users today are using internet for two prominent use cases, either talking to their friends by WhatsApp or any other social media platform, to get entertained, to download video, to consume video content or entertainment content. Some of them recently started using it for e-commerce also via platforms like Misho or other platform. But what is the most important aspect of this user's life is around that location, what is happening around them, local classifieds, local discovery, or local commerce has not been digitalized yet. So today, local is solving that. So we started trying to solve a small problem of information. Then eventually we evolved to do a lot more for this audience today. And today, why they are not able to adopt, right? Even though these users that I'm talking about are much more in number than the urban audience that is present today. So I'm repeating a lot of today anyway. So this बहुत ज़्यादा लोग हैं comparatively. They have the economic means. Most of these users have the economic means of 2 to 5 lakh rupees of household income at least. This is the average, and it's been 5 years, and they have payments adoption happening quickly with UPI infrastructure across everywhere. After all this time, they're not using it for the local use cases is because of 2 3 factors prominently. एक जो भी product आज है वो उनके लिए नहीं बनाया. So it's not built for them, whether it is at UX level, at an understanding level, navigation. UX is the navigation, right? उनके लिए नहीं बना. These are the people who are using internet for the first time on mobile, right? Then they have not seen desktops or laptops. For them, keyboard is very tricky to use because they're more comfortable in their native language. They want to express, right? How can they do it in that complex thing, right? So this audience के लिए products नहीं बने. Second, most of the products that they use, right, are community referred products. उनके जो दोस्त है या घर वाले वो लोग बोलते हैं अच्छा है तब वो खरीदते हैं, right? So trust is a very important factor. तो कोई भी platform trust के around बनना चाहिए इनके लिए. And then the third aspect is obviously the language, right? So fundamentally for this user, हम ये बनाना चाह रहे हैं, हम ये बना रहे हैं कि ये सब हमने प्रॉब्लम्स आइडेंटिफाई किया इन आवर जर्नी, दैट फॉर एन अर्बन ऑडियंस जो आपके मेरे जैसे लोग हैं, वी हैव ए लॉट ऑफ प्रोडक्ट्स. लोकल न्यूज के लिए ट्विटर है, न्यूज के लिए ट्विटर है, जॉब्स के लिए मैट्रिमोनी है, सॉरी जॉब्स के लिए नौकरी.com है, मैट्रिमोनी के लिए शादी.com है. ऐसे बहुत सारे प्रोडक्ट्स हैं जो अच्छे बने हुए हैं हमारे लिए. लोकल एक यूजर है, जो लोकल यूजर है जो सूर्यापेट से आता है या करीमनगर से आता है या सालेम से आता है, हसन से आता है, ये यूजर के लिए लोकल इन सब यूज केसेस, टू सॉल्व ऑल दिस यूज केसेस, लोकल इज बिल्डिंग प्रोडक्ट्स विथ लोकेशन एज द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट एंटिटी. वो लोकेशन है, वो सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट एंटिटी है उसके लाइफ में, एंड एवेंचुअली इवॉल्विंग एज ए प्लेटफॉर्म टू सॉल्व मल्टीपल यूज केसेस एंड बी ए प्लेटफॉर्म फॉर ऑल योर लोकल नीड्स. तो ये एसेंशियली हम बना रहे. प्रॉब्लम ने ये आइडेंटिफाई किया और हम इस तरीके से इवॉल्व कर रहे हैं, एंड हम काफी सक्सेसफुल है इस जर्नी में, वेयर वी आर at least at a newspaper standpoint, in our mature locations, we are 3 to 4x times bigger than the largest selling newspaper, and we are much more efficient in the use cases that we are solving. We are the largest local jobs platform in our mature locations, and the adoption is very very simple, right? Like uske dimag mein, just like my father, right, has the same user. He is in Kodad for last 35 years. Before he was in a small village, he migrated to this location. Now for him to use internet effectively, there are more things that needs to be done, and that is what we are doing. And he was dependent on local newspaper whether to sell his land. He sold a land like 6 months back, right? Offline is inherently more effort, and digital is inherently more transparent, more quick, and essentially more convenient as well, right? And we are enabling those experiences for people like my father. And I was just few fortunate people who were able to get good education and then migrate, right, from that location. So I'm staying in Bangalore, but a lot more people will stay. That doesn't mean fortunate in the sense that I think that gave me the opportunity to work on bigger problems. Someone in a place like Surapet is not less fortunate. I'm just telling that I was able to migrate, but there are a lot of users who remain in that location and still using internet in the ways. And to the point, until I went to this KGP, right, IIT Kharagpur, मेरी अंग्रेजी खराब ही थी. मेरा primary language था. So actually my mother tongue is Urdu. या उर्दू बोलो या हैदराबादी थोड़ा सा language बोलो. But when I went to that schooling system, I still, to a large extent from the small town, my primary language was तेलुगु. सो तेलुगु में कंटेंट पढ़ता था मैं, तेलुगु का पेपर पढ़ता था. सचिन क्रिकेट मैच मार के सेंचुरी मारते हैं तो नेक्स्ट डे मैं वेट करता था पेपर में आएगा, देखूंगा मैं. एकदम बड़ा सा फोटो आता था, काट के रखते थे, ठीक है. देन व्हेन आई वेंट टू आउटसाइड ऑफ, जो डिफिकल्टी थी, जो मेरे लोकेशन से मैं कई और लोकेशन माइग्रेट किया, वहां पे मुझे और लैंग्वेजेस की जरूरत पड़ी, राइट. देन मेरी हिंदी भी ठीक हो गई. मेरे कॉलेज में लोग मेरी हिंदी को भी मतलब चेंज कर दिया. तो आई यूज्ड टू टॉक समथिंग लाइक खुंदेल के और समथिंग लाइक काइकू. It's slang in that location. They kind of taunted me and made me learn Hindi to an extent because we are preparing for jobs and all internships. We had to, become better in English also. But isn't nahi to, the primary language for most of Indians is still the native language, right? Even today, right? मेरा majority YouTube consumption वो Hindi language में होता है, Hindi and Telugu prominently. English is unless there is an extraordinary content. So yeah, you just asked me about problem. I went on to tell you the entire story. Yeah. Let me give you the room to ask me more questions. Yeah.
That's a very interesting story and background, right? And I think the new to internet users will go through that classic adoption of entertainment, information, education, then utility, and so on, right? Like all of us kind of take it for granted right now in the cities after about 10 plus years of internet. So the interesting thing also is that with this insight, you didn't just straight jump into building an app, right? I mean, you validated the problem and solution on WhatsApp, and then productized it into the local app that we see today. Could you
Yeah.
take us through those stages? First the validation on WhatsApp, and then building the app itself. How did that whole process help you understand your users better?
Actually, I'll tell you. So I did the same mistake of first building an application. So I didn't
Oh,
did do the WhatsApp. So the first thing that Vipul, how did we land on this problem, right? So Vipul and I met. I was working in a used car marketplace as product manager. Vipul was building some sort of diagnostic tool based on car OBD, and he was connecting with people in my company to kind of sell that product. And that is how we kind of met, right? And that product वो कुछ चला नहीं, कुछ खास लगा नहीं हमें, but then eventually we found a lot of synergy among ourselves and we started thinking of building products. The first product that we built, right? So this was around the time of 2017. So 2017, Trump won the elections in the US. And we being the urban audience who are जो global citizens है, तो हमें लगा कि हम problem solve करते हैं, मतलब at least the friends that we have, we speak about the social media that we are consuming. So there is this problem of echo chambers, there is this problem of fake news. We thought we'll solve this. And we thought this is the problems of today that is very relevant. So first, before doing anything, we jumped on this problem because everyone is writing about this being a big problem. So we built a news aggregator that gives you English news primary language in the form of a timeline for you to consume. So echo chamber is something where you get to read news items about a particular narrative from the people that you consume news from, right? Either it is a news source, which is one news source independently, or your friends are sharing some content. So we tried to solve, we thought the solution for this would be to have an aggregator who is aggregating news from multiple sources and arranging it in form of a timeline. So if you can follow something like PNB scam war, it was a halla, right, in the country. Now what is happening with the PNB scam, no one knows, right? So we thought we will build that trail and then we would make people who are curious about it follow so that they are aware from multiple sources and there is no echo chamber. तो ये हमने बनाया बहुत ideologically. हम हमारे दोस्तों से बात किया, यार प्रॉब्लम है क्या? बोलते हाँ ये तो प्रॉब्लम है, बनाओ इसके लिए, ठीक है. तो मैं एंड्रॉइड सीखा, थोड़ा बहुत इजी था, बना लिया. विपुल यूज्ड हिज टेक टू बिल्ड द एंटायर इंजन, नो मैनुअल इंटरवेंशन, पूरा अच्छे से थीम्स बन जाते थे, स्टोरीज बन जाते थे, उसके नीचे अरेंज होता था, ये ऐप बनाया. देन हम सबको दिया, वी शेयर्ड इट विद 1000-2000 पीपल, मेट देम. तो व्हाट हैपेंड इज दैट कि सब लोग ले रहे थे, यूज डाउनलोड किया, कोई यूज नहीं कर रहा था. एंड नो वन वाज यूजिंग इट बिकॉज इट वाज नॉट रियली a need or a problem that we are solving. It's just in our mind कि यार ये शायद लग रहा है, एंड हम हर जगह रीड कर रहे हैं. रीड करना इज अ जनरल नॉलेज कि यार ये ऐसा दुनिया में प्रॉब्लम है. We never validated it. What does it mean, right? What does it mean? Are you so if you ask a user, are you like do you need something like this? In an ideological standpoint, he would say कि यार हाँ मुझे चाहिए, मतलब बट अब एक्चुअली आपको चाहिए तो वो नीड नहीं, इट्स वांट, राइट? सो देन वी रियलाइज, एक बार 7 महीने 8 महीने काम करने के बाद थप्पड़ जैसे पड़ता है ना वैसा पड़ गया, राइट? इट्स नॉट वर्किंग डूड. सो उस टाइम पे देन हम ठीक हुए, देन हम रिसर्च करने लगे ओवरऑल एज ए न्यूज कैटेगरी और कंटेंट कंजम्पशन पे हम रिसर्च करते गए. तो देन ये जो झटका लगने के बाद मैं और विपुल ने 4 कॉलेज के इंटर्न्स हायर किया और हम लोग यूजर रिसर्च करने चले गए. तो वी इंटरव्यूड 500-700 पीपल रफली, ठीक है? तो 700 लोग थे, उनमें से क्लस्टर करके 500 लोग का इनपुट्स लिया हमने. इन बच्चों को ट्रेन किया। तो आई वाज अ प्रोडक्ट मैनेजर एट गोजुमो, सो आई आई नो हाउ टू इंटरव्यू एट ट्रेन। तो इंटर्नशिप में यही बताया कि यार आपको हम एक साथ ट्रेन करेंगे। एंड देन वी कलेक्टेड दिस information, and this people are from different locations, and people, and my Vipul is also from Bhilwara, Rajasthan. It's a small place. So when we interviewed everyone, right, friends, extended family, and we started interviewing them, asking questions like कि तुम कंटेंट कहाँ से कंज्यूम करते हो, where do you consume content from, when do you consume, what sort of content is important, ये सब डेटा हमने कलेक्ट करके देन हम देखने लगे। तो हमें ये इंटरेस्टिंग इंसाइट मिली, ये जो टायर 2 लोकेशंस में लोग हैं ना, वो एक प्रोमिनेंट चीज बता रहे थे कि यार हम न्यूज़पेपर से कंटेंट कंज्यूम कर रहे हैं, इट्स प्रोमिनेंट, इट्स हाई रेलेवेंस आइटम। तो ये काफी सरप्राइजिंग लगा। तो हमने जाके ये पूछा कि न्यूज़पेपर यार महंगी तो है, राइट, मतलब मैं कॉलेज में कभी डलवाता था, देन इंटरनेट आया तो मैं यूज नहीं करता सच। तो महंगी तो है कंपैरेटिवली, मतलब महंगी मतलब 1500 रुपए टाइप, 5-10 रुपए का टाइप होता है आपका दिन का। तो इट्स समथिंग दैट 5-10 रुपए नहीं यार, कम होता है जनरली। आई रिमेम्बर हम जब 150 रुपए थे, इट मस्ट हैव इंक्रीज नाउ। सो बेसिकली ये जो कॉस्ट था ये थे ही कॉस्ट सेंटर, राइट। तो स्टिल ये प्रोमिनेंटली बोल रहे हैं इट्स डिलेड, राइट। तो हमें पूछा यार क्यों, क्या हो है। तो देन हमें ये यूजर से ये पता चला कि यार देखो, जो नेशनल लेवल पे होता है, कुछ जो स्टेट लेवल पे होता है, ये हर जगह से पता चल जाता है। फेसबुक भी पे है, लोग व्हाट्सएप पे कोई शेयर कर रहा है, टीवी में कंटिन्यूअसली शाउटिंग होती रहती है। बट हमारे आसपास जो है वो पेपर पे आता है, ठीक है। तो वी गेट टू नो, ठीक है। तो एंड आई कैन रिलेट विद, राइट, व्हेन आई वाज अ किड, राइट, लाइक हमारे पास जो ईनाडू की न्यूज़पेपर आती है, ईनाडू दो दो तरीके से आती है, एक स्टेट लेवल आता था, एक एक सप्लीमेंट आता था, वो डिस्ट्रिक्ट लेवल। और उसमें आप डिस्ट्रिक्ट लेवल खोलोगे तो यही होता है कि यहाँ पे गड्ढा खुदा हुआ था, ठीक कर दो, यहाँ पे किसी का क्राइम हुआ, और आपके टाउन में क्राइम हुआ, तो यार आप क्यूरियस रहोगे उसके बारे में, लाइक जाने के क्या हुआ। मतलब आई स्टिल रिमेम्बर कि मैं जब 8th स्टैंडर्ड में था, तो सम पीपल रॉब्ड ए होम, राइट, एंड इट वाज सो स्केरी for the entire town, and we spoke about it for month and a half. We were curious to know what happened with the guy who got beaten on the head and all, and that local information जो है वो काफी important है, ठीक है। जैसे कोई नई दुकान खुली, ये सब इंफॉर्मेशन उनको कहीं और से मिल नहीं रही थी, व्हाट्सएप में थोड़े लोग शेयर कर रहे थे, बट देयर इज नो वन प्लेस टू गो। तो हमें ये इंसाइट मिली। तो देन हमें लगा कि यार ये इंटरेस्टिंग प्रॉब्लम लग रहा है। तो हम कोशिश करने की कोशिश की कि अच्छा ठीक है, लोकल न्यूज लिखता कौन है, उनसे ही बात करते हैं। तो हमें पता चला कि सो वी फिगर आउट दैट देयर आर सम पीपल कॉल्ड like this local newspapers over couple of decades, right, and newspapers are a 100-year-old entity, most in India, and these newspapers over time have built a network of people across the country called stringers, right. So these are the users who, and in the locations where we researched, right, and we found most of them are working for free for these newspapers. And the reason why they are working for free is that there are social influences in that location. कुछ भी होता है उस टाउन में, उनको पहले पता चलता है, और वो लोग कोई दुकान खुलता है तो पहले जाके कवर करते हैं, दे आर क्लोजर टू एनीथिंग हैपनिंग इन दैट लोकेशन, इट्स द रिलेवेंस, राइट। हमें जब ये पता चला कि यार ये नीड जो है इनहेरेंटली लोकल इंफॉर्मेशन की और कंटेंट की, वो डिजिटली कोई अच्छे से इफेक्टिवली सॉल्व नहीं कर रहा है, ठीक है। एंड देन देयर इज अ लार्ज नेटवर्क ऑफ पीपल जिनसे हम ये कंटेंट दे सकते हैं। तो ये अच्छा कुछ प्रोपोजिशन लग रहा है। देन वी डिडंट बिल्ड प्रोडक्ट, इवन हमें पता चला ये प्रॉब्लम है, क्योंकि प्रोडक्ट बनाना फिर से टाइम लगेगा, उसका डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन सब देखोगे। देन वी बिल्ट अ व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप। उसमें हमने एक छोटे टाउन में एक लोकल जर्नलिस्ट को पकड़ा, एंड देन वहां उनको बोला आप कंटेंट दो। उसको हम थोड़ा सा फॉर्मेट किए अच्छे से, और हम व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप में डालने लगे, ठीक है। एंड देन वो फॉर्मेट वो जो लोकल जर्नलिस्ट है वही पिक किया एंड वही डालने लगे। देन वो एक ग्रुप जो है वो 8 ग्रुपों में बढ़ गया, लोग रेफर कर रहे थे। तो जो न्यूज़पेपर का जो खबर आती है वो कल आती है इन्फॉर्मेशन, राइट। सो देन जब हमें ये रियलाइज हुआ कि यार ये यूज तो हो रहा है, ठीक है, कुछ तो है। सो देन वी वेंट अहेड एंड वी डिड आवर फंड रेज, वी रेज्ड आवर प्री सीड बिफोर बिल्डिंग आवर प्रोडक्ट दिस टाइम, एंड मनी वाज नीडेड फॉर अस टू गेट मोर पीपल, बिकॉज वी रियलाइज कि ये प्रॉब्लम तो है, इसको हमने वैलिडेट किया है, हम जल्दी बनाते हैं, जल्दी इसको और टेस्ट करते हैं। सो देन eventually we have moved into a model today. We started like that initially. We moved into a model where today majority of the content on our platform is created by users. So because the stringers are also users, right, and then we built models around how to moderate, and there is a community led moderation in which a location का content आता रहता है आपके पास अभी, which is very very de facto, and उसके साथ साथ then you have built use cases in that location like jobs, matrimonials. Once you have a critical mass in that location, न्यूज़पेपर टाइप का ही बन गया। तो लोकल एसएमईज वहाँ पे जॉब्स डालते हैं, हायर करते हैं, मैट्रिमोनियल प्रोफाइल्स बनते हैं, मैट्रिमोनी, बिकॉज मैट्रिमोनी इज ऑल्सो टिपिकली लोकल यूज केस, क्योंकि अभी जो बंदा इंडिया में हर 100 किलोमीटर के रेडियस में ना लैंग्वेज डायलेक्ट चेंज हो जाती है। मतलब जैसे आप देखो, मैं तेलंगाना से था, आप थोड़ा सा मेरे होम टाउन से थोड़ा दूर जाओगे तो आपको आंध्रा चालू होगा, वहां पे जो डायलेक्ट होता है ना डिफरेंट होता है, और आंध्रा के नीचे रायलसीमा, वेस्ट गोदावरी डायलेक्ट चेंज होता है। फूड हैबिट्स टू एन एक्सटेंट चेंज होते हैं, कल्चरल नुआंसेस चेंज होते हैं। सो इट्स डाइवर्सिटी में, राइट, एंड फॉर यू टू फाइंड अ मैच, राइट, यू वुड फाइंड समवन इन योर 2-3 डिस्ट्रिक्ट क्लस्टर, ठीक है, देन वो आज हमारे लोकल प्लेटफॉर्म के थ्रू डिस्कवर कर रहे हैं, गेटिंग मैरिड, and we have local businesses advertising on the platform, and we are doing a lot more as this users are coming online, are trying to do most of the interactions for the first time using digitally, and their maturity is increasing. हम बहुत ज़्यादा कुछ कर पाने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं, trying to, आप ऐसा सोचो कि जियो ने इंटरनेट इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर बनाया इंडिया के लिए, हम बोलते हैं उसका हम एनेबलर बना रहे हैं कि सब लोग अच्छे
Building
से,
the application layer over that, basically.
यस, जिससे वो अच्छे से इफेक्टिवली यूज कर पाए। एंड ये कुछ डिफरेंट नहीं है, हम मतलब पहली बार नहीं कर रहे, मतलब जैसे ग्लोबली भी जब इंटरनेट पहली बार आया था, जब इंटरनेट पे लोगों को ट्रस्ट नहीं था, लोग आइडेंटिफाई कर रहे थे ये क्या है, ठीक है, लोग पहले क्रेगलिस्ट बनाया, क्रेगलिस्ट के
Exactly. Yeah.
बाद इंटीग्रेशन हुआ, अब क्रेगलिस्ट के पास विजन होता शायद वो और बना लेता, और यहाँ पे उसी तरीके का अपॉर्चुनिटी है for us to build and take these users to that meaningful journey of using internet and making their lives better essentially। मतलब क्रेगलिस्ट से पहले आप एयरबीएनबी भी चलाओ तो नहीं चलता, क्योंकि आपको नहीं पता ना यार ये क्या है, इंटरनेट क्या है, राइट, एंड यहाँ से क्या कुछ मीनिंग ढंग का नहीं होगा ना, तो देन आपका एवोल्यूशन जर्नी होगी थोड़ी। सो या, यू टोल्ड अबाउट why we started, so how we started WhatsApp, we did the same mistake. We first built something which we thought was useful, got feedback from the market and the user कि भाई तुमने कुछ भी बना दिया, मेरे को नहीं चाहिए, and then we eventually built WhatsApp, validated, and then started scaling. Yeah.
Nice. No, that's certainly an interesting lesson for everyone, right? In 2019, you were part of the YC cohort, right? And so, what was that experience like? What did you go in? With what expectations did you go in? And then, if you were to do like a before after that, for that program itself, what did you gain from that program?
YC has been very aspirational for me personally, because I started knowing about startups via Paul Graham's essays. So Paul Graham is this guy who started Y Combinator, and he's a very good guy because he started writing about what does it mean by building startup, what is his essays are genius, man. So if you ask, I learned what is the difference between a startup and a business from his definitions of what is a startup. So he typically uses a line where he says that anything that grows at an early stage with 7% week on week, startups are about growth, right? And he writes he writes that essays about what is wealth, how to be more articulate. So I learned a lot from there. And when in 2013 is the year when I graduated from college, right? In 2014, 15, we came to know about startups a lot more. So this entire Indian ecosystem evolved after 2013, essentially, when Flipkart became Flipkart after $1 billion investment happening into it, right? So till then there was not a lot of knowledge available. What is angel investing, what is VC, or what is product management to a large extent, how to build products, how to build distribution. All this is not common knowledge. Very few people had access to it. But in the US market or Western market, it is much more evolved. So it's evolved and extent that people started writing about it more often. So we came to know about YC in 2014, and it was very aspirational. बहुत बड़े-बड़े breakthrough companies आ गए वहां से, काफी अच्छा content हमें लगता था. So when I started my first startup, right, I applied for YC. I look at that video. I just still. So when you do YC application, you do a video also. You create a video with your co-founder. I sometimes look at that video and laugh to myself because it is so unrefined. But anyways, right? So over time, so I applied YC for thrice. So we applied in 2019. In 2018, we raised our pre-seed. Then YC, we applied because we truly believed that we are building a product which has the capacity to grow to millions of users. And we thought going into YC would help us get access to a network of people who has done this efficiently by building products like Facebook, Pinterest, Snapchat, or Twitter, a lot of social products, right? So we applied. In fact, before our pre-seed, we applied. So that is the second time we applied. We couldn't make it through. We applied with the name Lokify. Lokify, local pehle Lokify tha. So that evolved into local where it is today with a local with a K. So we applied, we couldn't make it in the initial, and we applied with the same idea. But this time when we applied, we had roughly around 300,000 users, which is significant. Then we did
Significant.
an interview and then we kind of got through. So YC has been and is, I highly recommend YC for people who are trying to build startup for the first time, and especially for people who, and YC generally has truly democratized fundraising to an extent, because there were always silos of investment happening, right? आप अभी भी large extent देखोगे, ठीक है, आपका कैपिटल जो डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन होता है वो इस तरीके से होता है पहले। इनफैक्ट अभी तो थोड़ा बेटर हो गया, काफी सुधर गया। 2014-15 तक there was a lot of complaints, right? कि on the ecosystem that typically an IITN is only getting funded, or an operator who has an exit, or who is closely connected to a VC is more funded, right? And for you to go to that level, right? So entrepreneurship is not easy. You have to be connected. You have to have that pedigree. So then that kind of, to a large extent, YC normalized that in the US. They still have good chunk of people from this Ivy League colleges, but so someone who is not from these networks where the access of information is slightly difficult, I would definitely prefer YC as a first place. Because once you go to YC, I think your next question is that what changed. I would, because I was building startups, right, for some time. For me, and we scaled a product to 300,000 users when we went to YC, right? So I think for us, it was not so valuable, but for whom it will be valuable, it is valuable for users, for those people जिनका फर्स्ट स्टार्टअप है और जिनके पास नेटवर्क एक्सेस जो है वो थोड़ा लिमिटेड है। तो YC would have modules to tell you how to acquire your first 500 users, 5,000 users. So they have modules, and they would say, you have to focus on these channels. They would say, and they have like beautifully structured documents. Like there is a document that tells about how you should approach an investor raising your first round. After there is a demo day event that happens where you go and pitch to a large set of investors, and then you can converse, right, for potential investor. There is guidelines. So they have this fundamental belief, right, that startups are hard, and they believe that good founders with good problem that they're trying to solve, for them capital access shouldn't be a problem. So they defined a model in which after you get into a YC, you will get slightly more access to capital in after that demo day. It's a 3-month sort of period जहाँ पे आपको थोड़ा ज़्यादा access of capital मिलेगा, and fundamentally your 1-year journey of building your startup can also be further reduced by following those ways of building, right? What channels to focus, and to a large extent still YC is more relevant for US audience, but they're very, very warm people. Good place to start with.
Nice. Excellent. So, your ambition is so bold actually, because, the fact that you are a super app is baked into your design itself, right? I mean, you are everything for these new to internet users. You are the internet for them actually, for all effective purposes, right? And so I really wonder, how your teams are structured to support that ambition, I mean, because you have to be wide enough and also deep enough. So how do you even begin to put the pieces together?
So there is this thing that we kind of talk to our team internally also, right? There is a vision that you want to achieve. So the vision is quite big, right? But you will always have a short-term plan of execution because you need focus. If you don't have focus, then it gets very, very tricky. So even today also, the way we have built everything is around how very, very systematic way. In the last 3 years, we have figured out how to launch a location, how to get users, how to get content, how to get to a critical mass, and then eventually build these use cases and then eventually monetize also. So the team has been extremely focused in a way that we have segmented it into 2 ways. One is there's a growth team, there is a monetization team, and then specific quarterly aspects have been given, and those goals, short-term goals, is what the team is chasing with a perspective on the long term. So it's like this, right? So this is let's say this is your way to go to your vision, and then your short-term execution can go this, then you correct yourself. Oh, this is the vision, right? Okay, so
Got it.
in
Yeah.
the long term, that is how we are going. So it's still tricky right now. I think we are growing so fast in terms of our user base and adding super amazing people to our team. We're still going towards our ideal structure, but I think we have a fundamental approach very solid in a way that every team would have 3 month sort of a timeline, and there is an owner for each individual. So let's say for jobs, we have an owner who has a long term understanding of what jobs product has to be for this user and what is the short term for it, right? And then you have a use case. So we have multi use cases, right? So we have matrimonial as use cases. There is a matrimonial owner who understands the long term of the core product also. And then so matrimonial and jobs, then is a local updates use case. The local updates use case have a short term owner. So for use case level, we are broken down, and then there is the short term goals that we want to achieve for that platform, and then long term, and then we chase that. So yeah, we are still figuring out. Essentially, we have some senior leaders who have joined. We do understand that there is some more refinement that is needed on the structure level as you scale. As structure becomes really important when you scale, right? When you are really young, structure doesn't really matter. It is about
Yeah.
finding that insight, building for it in whatever way possible. And definitely in the first 6 months to 1 year, it's mostly hacking, right? So as you scale, you kind of build structures. So we have hired senior leadership who has experience building large products or large teams. So working with them, we are creating more concrete structures as we speak right now. So we have hired senior leadership in engineering, senior leadership in product, senior leadership in operations. Amazing people who has worked on similar products, similar audience previously. And most of our early team members are people like me who come from the small towns, who understand this audience, and they're super excited with the vision that we are trying to solve. We discuss about this, and it's obviously right. You tell that it is bold, and that is what is very exciting for us as an internal motivation also.
No, it's certainly an interesting journey when you go from everybody doing everything to, like a proper structure, right? Categories, locations, so on and so forth. One of the things that we hear is, and it's also true, is that, scaling content is hard, right? I mean, if it's too centralized, then it's very limited. If it's, extremely user generated, then, quality suffers. And you spoke about, community and moderation and things to that effect, right? So can you walk us through, how do you manage this sort of a dichotomy?
So yeah, basically anything that requires scale, you have to rely on technology, and then you would want to visualize how this platform is going to be. So right from the start, we have envisioned the platform to be in a way where all of the interactions are going to be via the user. So and the content will come from the user. Essentially how we have seen, like, the stringers are our power users initially, right? But they're users, right? They are doing this for someone else, and the barrier to become a content creator in our location is not extremely high. You should know how to create content in a vernacular language. That's a challenge, but still these people have learned it. And then there are some inherent needs that you want to solve for yourself, and for that you would take some pain to create that, right? Like आप किसी को hire करना है, right? आपके पास पता चलता है लोकल से आपको हो जाता है काम आपका, तो आप डाल दोगे लोकल पे, थोड़ा एफर्ट होगा, आपको डिजिटल प्लेटफॉर्म्स पे कंटेंट क्रिएट करना अच्छा नहीं आता है, तो बट यू विल डू इट. सो वी हैव टेकन दैट अप्रोच ऑफ वन, वी नो फ्रॉम वेरी बिगिनिंग आफ्टर iteration that most of this is going to be user generated. Like all of it is going to be user generated. So then we started building for that. So then when you are a localized platform, right? So then the content has to be localized. So then we have built basic engines, started with basic engines that would tell that this content is relevant, this content is not. Then we built on profile relevance. So this user is creating content and have built some credibility score over time. He can go a verified user. And then we have built an engine that kind of flags content that is not from that location, that is looking spammy. So we have built that engine, and plus there is human assistant, and then there is community moderation, community telling that this content is spammy. And we have built this over the last 3 years, right? So with the long-term perspective that how this is going to evolve, we started our steps there, and now we have a very solid engine that kind of takes care of most of the content that kind of comes on our platform to kind of auto flag or auto remove content that is not relevant to the audience and that is not relevant to the guidelines of the platform.
Right. But you also have like people sourcing the last mile of jobs or the last mile of, let's say, matrimonial ads and so on and so forth. I mean, do you have teams that are tasked with adding these listings and so on?
We don't have any off fleet on street. All the things, it's the beauty of
Interesting.
the platform is that all this is being digitally today. So we do have intention of doing some experiments of accelerating some of this behavior quickly by testing with via fleet on street. But the beauty of our business is all of this is happening digitally, enabling these locations digitally, getting some initial set of creators quick, and then the content creation after critical mass is happening by itself.
Interesting. So there's also this misnomer that getting a Bharat user to pay is very, very difficult, and the Bharat user doesn't really pay, right? Which is not true. You have demonstrated amazingly well that people pay on that front, right? I mean, I think last I checked, I mean, you're at a 60K a month run rate, perhaps more now, I suppose, right?
Yeah, a lot more, but for the sake of confidentiality, I'm not disclosing it.
Right. So but you have demonstrated that the Bharat user can pay for value, right? And you monetize through things like advertising, listings. Your shout outs is actually something which is very unique, right? What has your experience been like on the monetization front?
I don't know. Basically, it is false, right? Why do I have to prove, right? It's Geo which has proven you. This is a
Exactly.
user who has some needs. You deliver value, he will pay. Geo has proven it to a large extent. Hotstar is now proving it. You deliver incredible value, they will pay. So you have to focus towards delivering value. So obviously, the value has to be to an extent that the user is perceiving it to be great value, not
Right.
you pursuing great value. So I don't know, it is true to build products that can monetize very efficiently, because a 1 rupee for this user and 1 rupee for me and 1 rupee for you have different context for all the three of us, right? And the 1 rupee for this user is more valuable because of the demographical divide of middle income, right? So this users value, so essentially the users value slightly more, right? The way in which they kind of deliver. So मतलब ये बोलता हूँ कि इनके लिए थोड़ा ज्यादा वैल्यू है, राइट? तो थोड़ा सोच समझ के खर्च करेंगे, बट आप वैल्यू डिलीवर करो, आपको दे देंगे. But luckily for a platform like Local, right, we don't have to convince all the users to give us money. We kind of work with local businesses in a location, and prominent of our revenue is coming from that local business, and this local businesses have intent to grow their business. वो फालतू का पैसा नहीं दे रहा है मेरे को. उसका कोई काम है वो fulfill करना है तो देगा, right? And this local
No,
business
there's a real tangible utility to it, basically.
हाँ, आप वैल्यू बनाओ, उसका लाइफ आसान करो, वो दे देगा आपको पैसा, जो भी जिस तरीके से. एंड अगर उसको आप ज्यादा पैसा बनवा सकते हो तो और देगा वो. Probability of you getting money from a share of money that he is earning is more easier than you are asking him to spend some money from his disposable income, right? So we are targeting that, where you get more business by advertising. So our battle is fairly easier than to a local user level, but we have a matrimony use case where users are paying money. You need that local discovery to be solved, right? And that local discovery we have solved, so user is paying us money. वो तो मैं नहीं मानूंगा कि यार ये मतलब डिफिकल्ट है, ऐसा नहीं है कि नहीं देगा. ठीक है, आप वो डिलीवर करो. एंड टेक्नोलॉजी essentially is that, right? You just make life easy for people. Obviously you can't in such markets, the revenue per user would be low, but it's a mass market, so your products has to be mass market, so you would be building it for a large user base. So in total revenue terms, it will be a large business essentially. So that is how I look at it, and that is the reason why a lot of activity is happening in India. When Jio jab launched by India mein, large internet pools of people ka accessibility बढ़ गया, right? And that is the reason why everyone started thinking that this is the next digital, this is the next big thing in India. That is what is happening. Yeah. So I hope I've answered your question, but yeah.
No, that's actually my experience as well. I mean, I've had 3 or 4 founders, more than that, in fact, who are building for Bharat, right? I mean, Stage, of course, and then Kuku FM, and so many Pratilipi, etc., right? And all of them have been very successful in monetizing this particular user, right? So I would say it's a misnomer for sure. Yeah.
Basically, देखो ये क्वेश्चन आप मुझे पूछ के कोई फायदा नहीं है, क्योंकि जिन प्लेटफॉर्म्स के बारे में बताया ना, देयर इज इनहेरेंट, ये बोलना ही पड़ेगा हमें कि हम पैसा बना पाएंगे, राइट? ठीक है, तो पीपल, so whoever would be the proof is in the pudding sort of a thing. ठीक है, आजकल मुझे भी अंग्रेजी आ रही है, ठीक है. So we inherently are generating revenue, right? So if you look at Kuku, I don't know about Pritlipi as such clearly, but in case of Pocket FM, in the case of Stage, they were able to get revenue in the case of local, right? So rather than we saying कि यार नहीं बन जाएगा, आप देख लो.
Yeah,
बन नहीं
exactly.
रहे हो. हमें क्यों देख रहे हो? आप देख लो, जियो को देख लो, आप हॉटस्टार को देख लो. आप to an extent, I wouldn't say this is apples to apples comparison, but Daily Hunt, Dream 11 जो है, sorry, Dream 11 जो है वो भी पैसा बना रहा है, but with the hope that कि आप ज्यादा पैसा बना पाओगे. अब वो अलग बात है कि वहां पे डिस्प्लेसमेंट हो रहा है वैल्यू क्रिएशन से ज्यादा, ठीक है, कि यहाँ पैसा वहां जा रहा है, उसमें से कट आ रहा है और ये बना रहे पैसा. बट या सो इफ यू बिल्ड प्रोडक्ट्स दैट विल हेल्प यू मेक मोर मनी, बहुत क्लियरली आप पैसा बना पाओगे. एंड जियो सॉर्ट ऑफ ए प्रोडक्ट कन्वीनियंस के लिए भी, विच इज द टफेस्ट प्रॉब्लम टू सॉल्व, कन्वीनियंस के लिए भी आप ये यूजर पे करता है, तो ये है.
Last couple of questions. I know, I mean, we're past our budgeted time. So, what are your plans for the future? Abhi 6 million active pe ho, right? How do you plan to go to 50 or 100 million users? And what are those, top 2 or 3 things that you consider are important for this journey going forward that you do right?
यार हमने तो, so we are kind of a matured company right now in terms of our journey. So we figured out essentially कितने लोकेशन होंगे, क्या होंगे. तो 1-2 साल में हम पूरा इंडिया लॉन्च करेंगे, मतलब टिपिकली मोस्ट ऑफ इट इन द नेक्स्ट 1 ईयर. एंड हमारा जो प्ले बुक है, जिस तरीके से हम आइडेंटिफाई करते हैं क्या लोकेशन है, कैसा यूजर्स लाएंगे, कैसे कंटेंट लाएंगे, इट्स वेल प्रूवन इन दैट वे. So to do that, essentially it initially we would require capital, and that is also not challenge right now. Okay, so yes, so the next step is for us to grow across the country. Currently, we are only in 189 districts out of 748 districts.
Right. And at every level, right? I mean, at every stage of the startup journey, I mean, a founder has to evolve themselves as well, right? I mean, they have to add these kind of skills to get their startup to that next level. So, what are some of those things that you are adding to your arsenal right now?
Yeah, I think one thing that I'm learning actively right now, considering where my phase is, that how to work with exceptional people and exceptional senior folks. We are hiring crazily, especially at a senior across levels and senior folks. How to work with them to do the best for local. How to find a sync. How to work together to solve problems. How to essentially build strategy working with them. All this is something that I'm learning actively right now.
Yeah, I think for any professional, when they hire someone older than themselves, I mean, that's a key moment in their professional life, I think.
Yeah, it's not about old and young. So I think senior.
No, more experienced, I would say.
Yeah, more experience. Yes, so that is a challenge, right? And especially the journey where we are, right? It is just difficult to give your baby and some of its parts to someone कि आप देख लो, आप बना लो. It's just inherently एक founder के लिए थोड़ा difficult journey होता है. And to just not meddle. And that is something that actively that we want to do, because as the company scales, it requires a lot of great people.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, so this has been a fascinating conversation, plenty of nuances that we've uncovered. And thank you so much for bearing with us. I mean, we've gone over time as well. Final question before we leave you: what are some books or podcasts that you would recommend to our audience?
Yeah, I would definitely suggest someone starting up, right? In early starting up, they would to read Paul Graham's essays. They're brilliant. I think someone starting up, I would suggest 0 to 1 also. It has I think I'll consider that book as something like it will give you a trip. It just makes you think like it's obvious, right? And Peter Thiel has this way of telling things. You can listen to Peter Thiel also. Like he's a great thought leader as such. 0 to 1 for someone starting up. I think the entire lean startup thought process is something, it's losing its charm over time, because there is nothing lean today in the market. Everything is fat. Right, everyone has access to capital to an extent, right? So in that way, but it is a good discipline to learn the fundamentals of it. Maybe not read the entire book, maybe read some blogs about lean startup to an extent, and more towards the nuances of building an MVP for an user, and in that way. So yeah, I think this would be my recommendations at a base level.
Hey, thank you so much again. And I know it's been a long and tiring day. Perhaps, I mean, you have many more hours to go today also. Thank you so much, and all the best for everything that you have coming up. Thank you.
Thank you, yeah. Thank you. And thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for listening. If you liked this episode, then don't forget to subscribe to us on your favorite platform and share this episode with all of your fellow startup operators. Also, follow the Startup Operator on LinkedIn and Twitter for more updates. Stay safe, take care, and see you soon on a brand new episode of the Startup Operator.